Welcome to Unsilent with your hosts Dave and Brian. This is not another current events podcast. We are digging deeper, diagnosing, and discussing what's really going on today, how we got here, and providing observations for future generations.
Welcome to Unsilent. We're Brian and Dave, and we'd love to hear where you think we got it right and where we got it wrong. You can do that by visiting unsilentpodcast.com, Rumble, or all the various and sundry social media channels that dominate our world these days. So, happy New Year, Brian, and another year of Unsilent in the can here. So,
we're coming up on 2.5 years. It's kind of hard to believe.
It is. It's pretty amazing, and in our tens of millions of followers, I'm sure are thankful for our voice of wisdom that we share each week.
For sure, we have at least all of your classmates from Evergreen State listening. There's no doubt about that. At least,
yeah. There's one of them right outside the door here with a pitchfork right now. You know, they take shifts.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were gonna say he's one of the homeless people. Okay.
Well, that's the other one. Yeah.
So before we get into the more serious stuff, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Congress set a record this year. We should be doing like the whole kazaa and, like, you know, confetti falling on the screen and all that. Maybe you've been tuned out and you haven't heard about this.
Maybe not.
Congress set a record this year for the lowest legislative output ever.
I have to say I'm not surprised. So I'm not surprised.
So I'm looking at a chart here. It's a very simple line chart. I won't bother sharing it with you, but this is the first year of each new administration, public laws signed by year. So there was like 110, 120, it looks like, in Obama's first year in 2008. And then it drifts down towards in 2016, Trump's first year looks like it's around 75, and then Biden's first year looks like it's about 70, and then this year so far we're on pace. We did hit 38, so 38 laws passed for an entire calendar year.
38 laws. Now let's see. And what's the federal budget? It's like $3 or $4 trillion or something.
Like, something like that.
Something like that. So 38 laws, $4 trillion. I'm not sure that I'm going to nominate anybody for a productivity award. You know,
I was thinking almost like I had that same first initial reaction, like, okay, what the hell do they do all day if they're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
But then my immediate second thought was maybe we figured it out, Dave. Maybe, well, there's two possibilities. One, maybe that they figured out even that they can't do any more damage if they just stop doing anything. And then the second or the third thought I had was, could we be encroaching upon the space in which they can't govern anything else? Like they're already entrenched into pretty much everything they can be.
I think that both of those are real possibilities. I think both are definite possibilities. And and the other thing is, there's the notion that if they're not passing laws, to your idea that they're not doing too much damage, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe there's something we can celebrate in there, right?
all kidding aside, I would be willing to bet you would have to go back to the late 1920s or 1850s, early 1860s, to have a Congress this impotent.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Here's a chart that I would be interested to see overlaid on that chart, and that is the number of congressional investigations that are taking place at the same time.
Right.
Maybe, it wouldn't surprise me that all of their time, effort, and energy is basically select committees investigating this or that or the other thing, and whatever the latest outrage is, because they've kind of become an extrajudicial court. That really the primary function of which is to create clips for campaign ads for the future. I think that's a possibility too.
I just think that there's just such a slim margin of majority. Like neither party has the power to really do anything.
Yeah.
Well, this week we certainly cannot. We cannot have any kind of conversation about what's happening in the world and explain to future generations what it's like to live through this era if we didn't talk about the fraud that was unveiled. I don't want to say discovered. I think lots of people knew it was there.
Oh
Unveiled
yeah.
feels like a more appropriate word for me.
Yeah.
And the hub, ground zero for it started like Minnesota was
Yep.
ground zero. And this guy who, I don't know, he's 22, 23 years old, YouTuber, like not a Matt Taibbi or Michael
Right.
Schellenberger level investigative journalist by any stretch. He's just a YouTube guy. But he goes out and he starts knocking on doors of these Somali people from Somalia who've immigrated here. I don't know their legal status. I don't know that part, but they've immigrated here, open up daycare centers, and get federal grants by way of the state of Minnesota. And it, by all appearances, they're not really doing daycare kind of activities. These facilities. Um, the governor Walz was Kamala's running mate.
Yeah.
So he would have been the vice president. And I think one of the things that's important to set the stage on this is this is not me coming with this. I saw this, I saved it, but he's in full on deflection mode, like deny, deflect, delay. Like he's in the full on politician. Holy crap!
Sure.
I'm caught, and like I just got deflect everything mode. Like
Right. Right.
that's very apparent, right? And we're talking 110 million dollars that this guy on YouTube discovered, but it's probably in the billions. I mean,
Well, they've discovered 9 billion total in fraud now, from what I understand.
Okay, so he bumbles along, knocks on doors, and like just says, "Okay, this place gets 1.2 million dollars a year. They say they have 90 kids. The door's locked. When you ask for an application to have a kid, they say no."
Right.
Anyhow, so Walls, his mode right now is deflect by way of calling people racist for looking into this, right?
Of course.
So, but I think, and this is a great, or actually, this is from Ari Hoffman. He lives in Washington.
Oh
State.
yeah.
He pointed out this is the same governor who had the Minnesota National Guard walking down residential streets, shooting residents, like American citizens, with paintball guns when they stepped out of their front door during COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
So the guy and he set up the whole snitch line. Like if you see your neighbor doing something they shouldn't, here's an 800 number to call to tell on your neighbors. Like so, this is the same governor that operated that way during COVID. Now there's no such thing as oversight. Like if you look into this stuff, you're racist. Like it's cartoonish.
Well, how is it possible with billions of to me $1 billion is still a lot of money, right? I mean, it still seems like a significant amount of money. I mean, so to put things in context, so here's an interesting one. There's a lot of turmoil in the conservative, and I'm not going to get off this topic, but there's a lot of turmoil in the conservative movement these days about how much money we give to Israel every year, right? And we give about $6 billion ish. It's a lot of money. This is for Somali daycare centers in Minnesota, something like, in all of these things combined, something like 9 billion.
Yeah.
It dwarfs the amount of money we give to the Israelis. And so what is staggering to me about this is that people thought that this could happen, that this amount of money could change hands without anybody noticing. I mean, how?
Well, which people are you talking about? The people who received the money, or the people who doled out the money?
All of the above.
Are you talking about?
All of the above. I mean, so if I'm doling out a bunch of money, and I'm with a state agency, I would think that there would be some level of checks and balance to ensure that things are going to the right place. So so there's on that side, and the other side is if I'm one of these people that's receiving tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's coming from the state and it's going into a bank account, and it's going to be how can you not? How can you think you're going to get away with it? I mean, how?
Well, I think I have a plausible answer for the second one.
Please,
and I think I have a plausible answer for the first one. So,
all right.
I'm gonna. I didn't say that because it was a long article. It was really well written though, and I'm gonna butcher paraphrasing it. But he answered your second question in this article, which was, and you and I have talked about how race doesn't matter, but values and culture does.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
In Somalia and other countries around that world, per this guy's article, it seems to make sense. like fraud is not a thing. Like that's not a concept. That's not
Sure.
a violation of any sort, because the through whatever means of war and people being in charge and like whatever, like however their whole society has been developed and it has evolved and whatever, fraud is not a thing. You have an obligation and duty to do what you can to support you and your tribe, period.
Sure.
And if that means you extract money from the government, then that's cool. If that means you extract neighbor from the neighboring village, then okay, that's cool. If that means you go out into the ocean and you extract wealth by
Pirates.
pirating in the ocean, which
Sure.
before, if you go back in time 2 years ago and you said like where's the pirating hotbed of the world, anybody who would have an answer would say Somalia.
Somalia, yeah, the
The
Somali
east,
pirates. Everybody
the
says
west
Somali
coast of
pirates.
Africa, or
Mhm.
wherever it's at, right? So his whole point in this article was, again, I'm paraphrasing it poorly, but it it's not, you almost can't say they should know better, because it's not part of their culture. It's not part of their value system. It's not part of their it's not even part of their decision making process to say, well, is this right or not?
Sure.
It's my tribe has none, their tribe has some, and therefore we need to extract it so our tribe has some too. Like that's it.
Well, and so that then, okay, so you take that, and that makes perfect sense to me. Take that and then say, well, what then does that mean about our society? It means that our society has done a horribly inadequate job of assimilating people into our value structure. Like, don't steal, don't lie on government application. We've done a terrible job of saying, hey, welcome to America. By the way, please don't steal $9 billion.
Well, I would argue we are doing reverse assimilation in Minnesota specifically. Like they just changed the state flag to look a little more like the Somali flag.
Sure. Yeah.
That happened, I think it was last year, might have been the year before, but Governor Walz signed that into law where they replaced the existing state flag of Minnesota, and it has the colors and symbols that are, they're not exactly, but
Sure.
it's much more in alignment with Somalia than it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, it wasn't very many months ago that the mayor of Minneapolis was doing the whatever, I don't know what the name of the dance is, but there was some kind of like tribal or Somali dance or something like that. He was doing it on stage at like a fundraiser or something like that, and then he
Sure.
went and toured all the Somalian restaurants and was eating the food, and like he's demonstrating to them that he's one of them.
Yeah. Well,
The state is showing them that they're one of them. Like it's reverse assimilation. It's absolutely bizarre.
well, and this is where, and this is happening not just here, not just in Minnesota, not just in the United States. It's happening throughout the entire Western world.
Right.
I mean, this is why to extend this out to England, there's the Union Jack movement. We've touched on a little bit in the past, but part of the Union Jack movement across England is to say, hey, wait a minute, we already have a culture. We don't want to destroy our culture. You look at Italy, and you look at here's a little tidbit for you. Did you know that Giorgia Meloni, the PM of Italy, president of Italy, PM or president? I don't know. Anyway,
I think she's a PM. Yeah.
PM, yeah, is the longest serving one since like the 70s or something like that. So,
Really? Okay.
conservative,
Yeah.
very, very pro-Italian, etc. But in all of these countries, the pushback is we don't want to see our country and our culture assimilate into another one. We want people to come here and assimilate into our culture. Now, of course, it's painted in every one of those countries, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, and wherever, as well. If you don't want to, you're anti-immigration, you're racist, you're bigoted, and all this kind of stuff. But all of these movements that we see and these movements are everywhere. It's in Ireland. I pay attention to a lot of the places where my ancestors came from. It's everywhere, and that kind of pushback. In some places, it's even more vocal than it is here. So I think this is an up and coming trend, but the Somali one, of course, is probably the biggest one in the financially speaking in the world at this point, is my guess.
Well, and right after, because I watched that 42-minute YouTube video. I watched the whole thing the other night. I was getting ready for bed, and my brain was still kind of going. So I just watched the video. I thought it was pretty entertaining to see. The entertainment factor was how easy it was to figure it out. Like, they printed information off the state's website. They showed the dollars, the names, and the addresses, and all that kind of stuff. And they walked up and like, are there kids? Okay, well, the windows are all blacked out. Like, you wouldn't do that with kids. There's no playground. The doors are locked. The few that answered the door when you said, "Can we have an application? I want my kid to go to daycare." They said, "No." Like, it, the entertainment was how simple it was to figure out. Right now, easy for me to say, like, he edited the YouTube video and made it all make sense, but still, I think that your average seventh grader could do the math on that. Then it starts coming out that, oh, by the way, Minnesota is probably just the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, probably. In Washington State, there's 539 of these daycare centers, same kind of name, same kind of everything, right? It's all the same. And there's a woman running for state legislature, I don't know exactly where, in King County, but not too far from you, who is being funded by the ones in Minnesota. And she's a Somalian immigrant. And so then you have that, like, okay, well, it makes perfect sense. There'd be like a nationwide web. Okay, fine. And then clips start coming out about these various people from Somalia who are, including Ilhan Omar, saying, "I'm here to make life in Somalia better. That's the purpose for me being in the United States Congress, is to make Somalia more, I can't remember the word she used, but like, it wasn't thriving, but something like that. More
flourishing,
whatever it was, right? Something like that." And then you start seeing, okay, and then the story started coming about these cases that actually made it to judges. There was a case where a jury unanimously found a guy guilty of a $7 million fraud case, and the judge overturned the jury and threw it out. Now, I don't know the legalities of it. She may have had a good basis for the overriding. I don't know any of the details. But what I do know is this is the kind of the news that will spread like wildfire. And the same thing that keeps people from tuning in, because we have what is 140 character memory or so.
Like Twitter,
handle, right? 7 seconds or 140 characters is kind of so nobody paid attention as this stuff was being built, but also nobody's going to pay attention to the details as it comes unraveled.
That's right.
Nobody's going to care if she did have a legitimate case. Nobody's going to care if all these things are just fluke circumstances. The same attention span limitation is going to work against the movement that helps support it, right?
Exactly.
But it's becoming more and more clear, like, this is just like baked in. And so I was wondering, I think that the deeper question I was wondering is, it feels to me like in my lifetime, we've always been the superpower. Like, it was the tail end of the Cold War. I mean, the Soviet Union fell in 91, but they were more or less crippled from, like, I don't know, 85,
the 80s,
3 maybe late. You can make a case that there were several places where they just kind of economically fell apart. So I don't ever remember being truly scared of like nuclear war. It just wasn't. It just didn't feel like it was in the car. But I was young, I wasn't paying attention. That's maybe not fair. But my point is, my entire lifetime, we've been the big dog on the block.
Right.
I suspect that most of us kind of think that way, and I would believe that it would be easy for us to believe that we're immune to this kind of somebody just like taking it to us. Not in a kinetic war kind of way. I think we would win most of those, if not all of those. But our guard is down in so many other ways, and we don't see ourselves as vulnerable. And I would argue that probably if you were the kind of person who wanted to steal from somebody, you would probably want to pick a target who had their underbelly exposed, but thought they were immune to penetration of any kind. That would be like the ideal target, probably, right?
Right. Well,
and it kind of feels like that we have become that. Is that making sense?
Well, it does. I think there's two things. I think there's that. And I think there's also this notion that we are so big and so rich and so disorganized that stealing from us. I mean, these people have demonstrated that stealing from us is easy.
Yeah.
It didn't take them. I mean, it didn't take them much to figure out how to, scam off 7, 8 figures of income. And it doesn't sound like these folks had these big elaborate schemes. It sounds like were
Not
pretty
elaborate at
basic.
all.
It's just like,
Yeah.
steal. And so, and I think there's the concern that Americans just don't care, and yeah, a billion here, a billion there, I'm just going to go get mine. I'm just going to, the breakdown of trust in the society. When you become a low trust society, then it's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll do that too. It's just, I had somebody, this is a microcosm. I might have mentioned this at some time in the past, but one of the things that happens up here a lot is people just dump stuff on the side of the road. They don't go to the dump anymore. Last night I
Yeah.
was driving and there's a bunch of mattresses just laying on the side of the road out in Graham.
Yep.
And I had somebody tell me a while back that she got on her husband because he did that, and he's not the kind of guy to do that. He's you live in a nice community, and she's like, well, if everybody else does it, why not? And that was his answer to his wife on that. Now, of course, she smacked him, and he's not going to do that again. But
Well, he's certainly going to fess up to it again.
Yeah, well, at least that. Yeah, at least that. But when you become a low trust society, and when you think that none of your systems are working anymore, then and then people on the outside, they see that and they come here and they think, well, they don't really care about their society, so I'm just going to steal whatever I can and scam 1 million, 10 million, a billion, whatever I can get. That's the end result of that, and nobody's going to miss $100 million, right?
Right. Well, when you put all the pieces together. So the same governor who was shooting paintballs at citizens for stepping outside their doorstep during COVID
Right.
has no time or interest or ability to oversee this.
Right.
If somebody else, the feds or some prosecutor sneaks in a case unbeknownst to the governor, whatever that would look like, and it actually does go to trial, the judiciary throws it out.
Yeah.
Right. And then you start seeing these. I started paying attention more to these videos where there's like people who are, like there was a video of a lady who, and all this stuff could be made up. I don't know. But again, it doesn't matter, because if people see it and it pulls their heartstrings, that's all that's necessary. It doesn't matter if it's accurate.
Yeah.
But a lady was doing a video. She's like, 70 years old or something like that. And she's like, I had a career for 36 years. I paid my taxes. I did everything I was supposed to. I followed the rules, and I went to get my Social Security. And she must be like 62 or 65, because she went to get her Social Security. And it was like $800 a month.
Yeah.
And she's like, who's the fool here?
Right.
I did everything right.
Yeah.
And you see the young people. I mean, on TikTok, there's tons of videos now of young people who are like, I go to work. I don't have time to do anything else. I don't do fun things. I don't buy toys. Here's my itemized expenses. Here's my rent, my insurance, my groceries.
Right.
And I have like $127 left at the end of the month.
Right.
Those stories will eventually start pulling at people's heartstrings.
Yeah.
And I think along with the things you were saying, like we all the stuff you were saying about, how we kind of got here. I think another big thing is just frankly white guilt.
Sure. Yeah.
There's I think, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but Saudi Arabia had slaves, Iran had slaves,
everybody had slaves,
everybody did, except for like Ireland.
Yeah.
Everybody did, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's the same level of shame and guilt as we feel, like earnestly feel. I don't.
Right.
I know everybody discusses how it's bad. I don't mean that. I mean, like, but there's like a real emotional pull for most of us in the U.S. Like, holy crap, that was really that was horrible. I can't believe we did that. What better leverage or tool for leverage could you have than that?
Absolutely.
To help, fight this, to propel this kind of thing, not fight it, propel this kind of thing forward, this kind of fraud. And we're seeing it now where people are being called racist for even noticing. Like this 23-year-old kid is being called a racist for targeting the Somali daycares. Well, if that's the ones doing their crime, like, what are you supposed to go find a white daycare to knock out?
Right.
Like what?
You got to go look for the French guy that came to the country and did it, right?
So my question for you is will this just be a violent end to that shame, and like it'll just be like, okay, but nobody cares. The lady she's getting $800 a month in Social Security, and the kids can't afford anything but more than a studio apartment. because the incomes have not kept up with rents. And is
Yeah.
this gonna be like a hard slamming of the door, or is it gonna be like a rational conversation where we try to navigate how do you actually deal with having a past with that in there, where it was slavery in there, and all the nastiness and all the horrible things that go along with
Right.
that, and also have built a society where people can get ahead theoretically based on effort, ingenuity, hard work, discipline, like creativity, like
Right.
all the things we've been taught our whole lives. Is there going to be a conversation like sort that out, or is it just going to be like a violent door slamming and just like, okay, we've had enough, who cares, move
Well,
on?
yeah, I think it's first going to be a snowball, and that snowball is going to cause that violent door to slam. So I think that's or as it goes, as the snowball gets bigger, and just like you were talking about earlier, people aren't going to care whether or not the judge had a valid technical reason for throwing out the
Right.
case. They're just going to be like, no, it's unfair, it's unfair. So the snowball is going
Yep.
to continue to grow, continue to grow. There's going to be symbols everywhere, like there are in Britain with the flags all over the place, and in a variety of other countries where you're seeing the same thing happen. So the snowball is going to continue to grow. It is going to be, I believe, I think there's no question. It is going to be a violent, door slamming kind of experience. And I think what historic history is going to tell us then is that after all of that, eventually there will be a rebuilding. Eventually there will be a conversation, in the next turning, in the first turning that
Yeah.
happens after the, destruction of the current age that we're in. I think at that point there will be we saw how a society can go wrong, and we saw the violent backlash against a society going wrong, and we want to avoid going forward. We want to avoid both those things. We want to avoid it going wrong in the first place, because and we want to avoid the violent backlash as well, because in the backlash people will get caught up that shouldn't be caught up, that didn't do anything wrong. That'll
Right.
happen as well. It's unfortunate, but that always happens. So there's going to be, I think, all of those and to the degree that to the degree that the societal sin of things like the Somali daycare thing, that to whatever degree that is, the backlash will be that or more. And so, and the more we find out, the more that there's like, by the way, this wasn't just this one. There's the one in Seattle, there's Portland, there's, Omaha, there's, you just keep going down the road, and eventually it takes on a life of its own, and Katie barred the door.
Yeah. The other bit of gasoline to add on the fire is the corporate media. CBS is the only exception that I know of. The corporate media is not even reporting on this. It's like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bewildering to watch. Like
Yeah.
how foolish must you look? Like they must feel how foolish they look. They have to feel that, Dave. These are smart people. What is compelling enough of a driver to overcome? I mean, nobody wants to look stupid. No, I mean, this is one of the most,
Yeah.
in the workplace, like one of the biggest drivers of people's behavior in the workplace is avoiding looking stupid in front
Yeah.
of their peers, the boss,
Sure.
whatever. They have to feel this. These are too smart of people to not feel it. So, what is the driver that could be in place that is stronger than that to keep their? It can't just be. I mean, I guess it could just be money, but it seems like that would be unlikely to me. It would just be money.
Well, I think it's money is a part of it, but I think it's their entire worldview is collapsing. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
really what it is. So when are you willing to turn a blind eye to things that are so completely outrageous and outlandish? Well, it's because, okay, well, if we acknowledge this, and we kind of have to acknowledge that, like the conservatives might have had a few points here and there that, were right. And maybe, this whole USAID thing that Trump shut down, maybe there was some, I mean, you open the door, and the problem is you can't, I think you can't open the door to the barbarians. I think that's what, if you talk to the people at ABC and NBC, I don't know if they can articulate it, but my guess is that their worry is that it just opens the door to the barbarians if you acknowledge that this is happening and that this is a terrible thing and something has to be done. And
Yeah.
that's even more than the shame of,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that having to going back to that Yuri Brezmenov video we watched,
Mm-hmm.
they will hold on to that until the last possible second.
Yeah.
I think his words were that they'll hang on to it until the boots in the concentration camp kick them in the ass. I think it's what he
Right,
said.
right, exactly.
But it does feel like you can't, as a society, function when you bring people in who are coming to take rather than to build,
Right.
or to destroy rather than give in a reasonable balance with taking,
Yeah.
and build in a reasonable balance with destroying. Like, nobody's perfect on any of those fronts,
Sure.
but this actually came out, I think, before the whole fraud thing really was broken open a few days ago. But and I think I may have shared one of these charts a while ago, but I didn't go back and look. Actually, yeah, here. So I saved this back on August 25th, it looks like. This is welfare. Oops, why does it keep moving? Yeah, it keeps moving on my screen. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is December 10th. I saved this. So this is welfare use rates in Minnesota by household.
Okay.
Uh, so any welfare, 21% of native households in the state of Minnesota get some kind of welfare of any kind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somali immigrant households, 81% of those households.
Wow.
So 21% for native
Right.
US born citizens, percentage of households getting any kind of aid, 81% for Somali, and then 78% of Somali households who've been in the country more than 10 years.
Really? Wow. So they've learned the system.
Now, so that's the all welfare bucket. The cash only bucket, 6% of native households get cash benefits,
Mm-hmm.
27% Somali immigrant households, and 25% of Somali households who've been here more than 10 years.
Wow. Wow.
Food stamps, 7% native, 54% Somali, 48% Somalis who've been here more than 10 years. And then Medicaid, 18% native, 73% Somali, 68% Somali who've been here more than 10 years. So I saved that in December 10th. But we had other things we were talking about, and it didn't really seem to fit with other things we were talking about. Here's another one that's similar. This I saved on December 11th. So again, these are not things coming out as a result of this. These are
Yeah.
things that were kind of around for a while. This is US. This is nationwide, not just this is not just one state. So cash welfare, US born 16%, legal immigrants 23%, illegal immigrants 18%. So 16% US born, 23% of legal immigrant families, and 18% illegal. Food stamps, US born 25%, legal immigrants 34%, illegal immigrants 48%.
Wow.
Double the US native, right? Medicaid, US born 25%, legal immigrants 36%, illegals 39%. Housing, US born 5%, legal immigrants 5%, illegal immigrants 4%. So that's kind of a wash. And then the any welfare bucket, US born 39%. First of all, I can't believe it's 39% of families that were born here getting assistance of some sort of, which maybe that includes Medicaid or
Yeah,
Medicare.
it
I don't
must.
know.
Yeah, it must. Medicaid,
It
Medicare.
includes Medicaid, but maybe it includes Medicare also. I don't
It
know.
it
Anyhow,
must.
39% US born, 52% legal immigrants, 59% illegal immigrant families, households.
Wow.
So that any any fourth grade economist would tell you the math ain't gonna math on that very long, right?
No, it's not
So,
sustainable.
and it's not, I don't feel like it's too simplistic to say we're literally borrowing the money from our grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
to fund this today, in part so nobody calls us a racist. See, it
Well,
feels like it's that simple to me.
yeah, totally. And so, and then the entire media complex is set up to support this scheme because it supports their power structure. So you've got this sort of Faustian bargain that's taken place there. And it's exactly the opposite of what the immigration system also was designed to do. The immigration system is designed to say, yes, bring folks here, but when you get here, you're supposed to begin to figure out ways to contribute to support yourself. I mean, we've got there's no place on earth that somebody can come to that is more opportunity to learn something new and to make a living and to support yourself. So
Yeah.
the whole structure is, and the only question has always been really how long can it go before it collapses? And I think we're on the edge of that right now.
Well, I don't know if you remember this. Maybe a year and a half ago, I told you of a story of somebody I know personally. We're not like close friends, but I know her personally. She immigrated. She's a legal resident. She's not a citizen. She's a legal resident who came here from Canada. She
Mm-hmm.
was born in like Romania or something like that. Okay. She started a small business here. She had to have a business plan to
Mm-hmm.
get her right to live here, not citizenship, to
Yeah.
get the ability to live in the United States. She had to have a business plan. She has to meet with somebody to show if she's profitable in that business. Um, she and by the way, the benchmarks for that she has to achieve are not layups by any
Yeah.
stretch. I mean, she has to grow her number of employees. I think it was like 2 the first year, 6 the second year, something like that. I mean, it's a it's a
Significant.
lofty plan.
Yeah.
It's yeah, but she's from Romania. She's from the Eastern Bloc, so she
Yeah.
doesn't look like the folks who are coming from the Somalia
Tamales.
area
Yeah.
in the
Right.
world, right? So it seems to me, and again, that's one case. My point is the immigration process as was drawn up is working for some people how it's supposed to work,
Right.
and I would argue in her case it's too stringent. It's too
Sure.
that's to grow that fast is like you're asking a lot.
Yeah.
Whatever, she's working 7 days a week. Her and her husband, they work 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
Knows their grandson. They're doing it.
Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. But it is very much it's not a wide, broadly applicable plan.
It's a double standard.
The standard's
A
not
double
broadly
standard.
applied. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I would argue that it's not a double standard; it's a hierarchical standard.
Yeah. Well, a hierarchical standard based on your victim status, right?
Right. On
I
the
mean,
intersectionality index or whatever that thing is called.
yeah,
Yeah.
the victim status or the your colonization metrics. You know, how much was your country colonized? Your country of origin, how much was that colonized? Well, then, that gives you a certain amount of points to be able to extract from the colonizers, aka us.
Okay, so when you take all the things I mean, many of the things we talk about seems to like move in and out of this fraud realm here.
Sure.
Like we look at the Yuri Brezhnev stuff. There's a plan to infiltrate. You're not gonna know what it is, and
Yeah.
it's diabolical, and
Right.
it'll be effective, right? We take like the Mike Ben stuff we've broken down, how the NGOs worked at the federal level, and they set up these shell corporations who they're there to help entities and organizations like these daycare centers.
Sure.
That's their purpose. And then
Right.
a piece of the money goes to the administrators, and a piece of the money goes to campaign funding, all that kind of stuff. So at the federal level, they're in. At the state level, clearly they're in. Like you said, the level of oversight or inspection you'd have to do to find out these things are bogus is like minimal. Even a state employee could do that, right?
Right.
Then you get to the judicial, and they're on board. Like they kick the stuff out.
Sure.
They're on board with this too. It feels the unions, I mean, seem to be on board. Like everyone
Sure.
seems to be contributing to the same mechanism, and it leads me to wonder: are they stupid? I mean, I don't like to use that word, but you have to be like just stupid to not see how this just the math can't math.
Yeah.
And nothing good from this is going to happen if it runs long enough. Or do they truly just want to destroy the society we've been aiming to build?
Right. Well, and I think there's a stripe of each one of those in there. I think there's the stripe that says, well, if you're losing money, if you're getting taken advantage of, well, you took advantage of other people when you invaded their countries and when you colonized their countries and when you forced your English language and your capitalism and all this stuff on other countries. So I think there's a stripe of that that's like, well, it's about time that America got its comeuppance, because of that. So I think there's that. I think there's also the stripe that's like, I mean, the system is set up just perfectly for the fraudster to take advantage, for the person to come in and make a quick buck by, it's set up, it couldn't be set up any better for people that are willing and interested in doing that. So I think you've got multiple different layers there. And then it's set up, of course, for those that are on the outside that say, well, we need to knock America down 3 or 4 or 5 notches so that our country and our, ideology can advance. So I think all those things happen simultaneously, and that's what we're saying. But then I think there's also, in each one of those, there is a belief that it can continue on unabated and uninterrupted because it's so pervasive. And that's what's wrong. And that's what that snowball is going to kind of consume as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because it can't continue this way, because they do underestimate each one of those levels. I think of people taking advantage, underestimate there's a core culture here that's not going to go quietly into that dark night.
Right. Yeah. And then as you mentioned earlier, the media is completely, like, I'm looking at this thing it's now called MS Now, I guess. MSNBC.
Oh yeah, now MSNBC is MS Now, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So on this is yesterday, they're claiming that this is basically just this whole fraud thing, just made up story by Trump, and you can't weaponize the government on to be racist, like that. So the everybody's in on, including the media.
Yeah.
Like everyone's in on it, and just like you and I talked numerous times about how the crime and stuff like that. If you live in Beverly Hills, you don't worry about the crime down in the valley in LA, because it doesn't affect you. So who cares? Right. I feel I'm starting to feel that same way now about the lady who's getting $800 a month in Social Security. Like she didn't worry about this stuff, but enough of that is going to happen where people are going to start caring on that side as well.
Yeah.
And the young people, like I said, after watching that 42-minute video, the algorithm was just feeding me all kinds of stuff about fraud.
Right.
But so I saw a number of videos from, young people, these TikTok clips, just basically complaining about, like, it's not fair. These people come here, they don't contribute. They're on welfare of some sort. You can see the statistics. Like, they know these numbers. They know the numbers I just went over with you.
Right.
And they see that they have $127 left at the end of the month after paying basic bills.
Right.
At some point, and one of them flat did say something like, "Why am I paying taxes again?" Like,
right.
Explain to me why she continue feeding into the system that is actively working against me.
Right.
And it feels like that is not gonna. I don't think that's gonna go away. I don't feel like the climate change thing might go away for or ebb and flow or whatever. People not having money by following the rules and watching people get rich. Oh, I forgot this one. There was these 2 guys from Somalia that they claim that they were from Somalia anyway, dancing around in front of a guy, like waving $100 bills or $20 bills, something like in front of him, like mocking him for, he's like, don't you wish you had this money or something like that. It was like again, nobody's gonna do the vetting on that video to see what it's really about. There's like the emotional thing happens in 4 seconds, and like that's the story that their brain's told, and like they're off to the races.
Exactly. And the tipping point, see, and this is what's interesting to me. It's like your gal that you're mentioning that gets the 800 on Social Security. The tipping point is this: when somebody walks through the door and says, the rhetorical door, and says, "This is wrong," and they risk being called a racist, and a bunch of other people walk through that same door and like, wow. There's a bunch of us here, and we all recognize that this is wrong, and we all recognize that we've been taken advantage of. And that's why it's not going to stop, because there'll be some people trying to close the door and say, no, you still got MSNBC out there, or whatever they call them, MS Now, what they call themselves now, saying, no, if you say anything about this, you're racist. But they're getting drowned out. They're just getting drowned. And this is happening in all Western societies. The people that are saying that are trying to maintain the status quo of, racial guilt and all this kind of stuff. They're getting drowned out, and it's only going to get bigger as the snowball grows. And there's no way to put the genie back in that bottle.
Right. Well, that was certainly the most meaningful thing that happened, especially given the holiday season, where like
Yeah.
usually news is pretty dead, this time of year. So
Yeah.
that was pretty meaningful. I don't. I guess I'll just leave it at this. Because there's one other thing we want to get into real quick before we button up for today. But I this is such a big thing. I think we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And as more of the layers of the onion are peeled back, it's going to piss off more and more people
It is.
who have, from their point of view, by and large, done the right thing,
Yep.
followed the rules, paid their taxes, paid their penalties when they're late, paid their penalties when they misrepresented their taxes by $1,200 because they did the math wrong or whatever. Like,
Right.
there's millions of stories of that. People just like
Sure.
getting by, doing the best they can. Like, this is just my lot in life. But that changes when people are getting wealthy off of your dollars, but also
Right.
by not contributing. I don't think that
Exactly.
goes away.
No, it doesn't. There's no way it goes away because it's just going to accelerate.
All right, tell me what's going on in Iran. I didn't even know this was a thing until yesterday. I had some time at the airport and stuff this morning. I saw some stuff there because I was just kind of killing an hour and a half at the airport this morning. But I assumed this was AI nonsense. But
No.
apparently there's like protests in the street. And before you explain what it's all about, because I really don't know. I don't know much about it other than like they're saying like inflation and all the same things that cause all regimes to crumble. It's always financial, it seems like.
Yeah.
But what I did notice is I've seen a number of the videos now because I watched a couple, so of course the algorithm feeds me more, right? But I didn't see all the normal people who were talking about, like the Greta Thunbergs and the Mark Ruffalos of the world. Like they don't have anything to say about this, which I find interesting. But you explain to me what's going on, and then maybe we can figure out why this doesn't fit in the category of people being oppressed that ought to be liberated.
Right, exactly. Well, so of course, I mean, Trump has been very, very hard on Iran, and very, we've got significant sanctions on them. It's harder for them to sell oil. The only thing they really have is oil. Their economy is just, I mean, to say it's doldrums is the wrong word. Their economy is pretty much on the verge of collapse. They've got an incredibly young populace overall, and that populace is not ignorant of the way that young people live in other parts of the world. So they understand what's going on, and it's like, well, why are we here with these bearded guys in robes, and we can't get a job, we can't and is this sort of anti-Zionist, anti-Western, commitment of ours, which is keeping us from having a vibrant economy and participating in the world economy, is this even worth it? So what's going on here? So they're, and they've been, now the Iranian regime, their way of combating that is to kill people.
Right.
It's always been. So it's like, you can say anything you want before you get hung,
Yeah.
But at this point, there's been videos that have been snuck out, and there's been pictures that have been snuck out that show the amount of people that are flooding the streets. It's just, it's overwhelming. And so the question really is whether or not the Iranian regime can survive. Now, the bizarre thing about this is too, that on one hand, the Iranian regime has been making some overtures to the Trump administration because, I mean, you make nice with Trump and maybe you'll live to fight another day. At the same time, I think it was yesterday or maybe it was today, I don't remember this, just recently, one of the president of Iran said, we're in total war with America and the West. So, they've got to do both, because they've got the hardliners to deal with on one hand, and then they've got the vast majority of the people, which are not hardliners and are not radical Islamics, that they have to deal with it, on the other hand. So they're in a very precarious situation, and the question is whether or not they survive, and it's hard to say. The part that gives me pause on this is that they've been in difficult situations before, and they've killed their way out of it. So I don't want to overestimate whether or not popular uprising is going to be effective this time. It seems like there's more possibility of that this time than in previous times, but we'll see. Time will tell.
I do remember seeing that again. I hadn't been paying attention to this really at all. I hadn't really thought about Iran since we dropped the bombs that
Yeah,
supposedly took out their nuclear program. Whenever
right.
that was, July or whatever that was, I don't know. But I hadn't really thought about them at all. But I do remember seeing a couple of things pop up on social media about a couple of young girls who had done something that violated the rules,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
like they had, I think they had either danced or they had gone somewhere without the face coverings or something like that,
yeah.
or they had some kind of, they weren't doing like provocative, they weren't twerking. You
Right.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Right. Right.
it might have been like a gymnastics kind of dance, or it might have been a pop dance. I don't know the details of it. But they were either executed or severely beaten and like whipped or caned or something like
Yeah.
that. It was like it was severe punishment. Um, there's the economic thing is one thing, but these people in power, they do age out.
Yes. Yeah.
The young people, like we're seeing it in our country. The baby boomers were the biggest generation by numbers we'd
Right.
ever seen, and now I think it's the millennials or Gen Z, one of the two is bigger than them.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so just the numbers of people to enforce these things does dwindle over time, and at
Right.
some point the new generation, a la the fourth turning
Right.
and generations and that whole, like the new generations do come to power and take over. I wonder, we talked before about in the 1979 Iranian, whatever that was called,
Yeah. Rainy Revolution. Yeah.
the revolution. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. There's a story of the mother who actually put the noose on her son's head
Yes.
before he
Yeah.
was executed. However, it would take a hard-hearted man for not to be a little different with your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and
Now,
I
again, cultures are different. I get that. Many cultures have valued the life of a man more than a woman. I get, but I don't know. Your daughter doesn't wear a mask and she gets caned or hung or beheaded or
yeah.
stoned or whatever it is. I don't know. I Somewhere under that there's still a pulse and a heartbeat. I think.
Well, I think for most there are. I mean, there's some that are so committed that they would,
Sure.
honor killings. There's in
Yeah, yeah,
Islamic
yeah.
cultures, there's been honor killings, fathers killing daughters. So there's, that does happen. But I do think that it's important to understand that what you said, they're aging out. The Iranian regime is aging out. The Ayatollahs are aging out, and they will eventually collapse. And when that happens, it's going to be the young people that end up taking over. And so I don't think that's too far down the road. I mean, the Khamenei is not a young man, and will the populace accept it's easy to accept the dictator that's already, not easy, but it's one thing to accept the dictator that's there. It's another thing when that dictator dies to put in another dictator and have him have the same amount of support, because you're just kind of coasting with the existing guy, right?
Yeah.
His dictatorial evil. It's like, well, yeah, he's going to die soon, but when he does, and are they going to accept a new Ayatollah? And I think, and maybe this is just me being optimistic, I don't think they will. I don't think they'll accept a new Ayatollah. I think they will either make a move towards the West. And now some of it depends, frankly, on China. Because the only reason that the regime
Yeah.
still is in
And
place in Iran
and
is
Russia
because
to
of
a lesser
China.
degree for sure, probably.
Yeah, but yeah, to Russia to a certain degree as well, but China mostly, because they're the ones that are taking the Iranian oil. And if they, I mean, if Trump ever come to some agreement with Xi that gives him what he wants, something he wants more than he wants Iran, then Iran's done. Iran's over. So there's some various chess pieces on the board that are in play.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I do like the story I saw was that like the main bazaar, the main shopping center, it's like
Hmm.
a street bazaar, was like the main shopping center in Tehran.
Yeah.
Like the vendors just stopped coming in. And the reason they were pissed was because the inflation is so bad. Groceries are up 72%. I remember that number. I don't know what the
Right.
inflation was. It was well over 100%. It was like
Yeah.
140,
It's
150%
triple digits.
inflation
Yeah.
year over year.
Yep.
Like whatever their currency is worth, like it takes 1.45 million of those things equal US dollars. It
Right.
was some crazy number like that, right? I
Yep.
mean, we think the peso is bad, but it was way worse than that.
Yep.
Um, so inflation is getting out of control, and then you have all the cultural things, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no
Right.
path they're on to get out of it. So when you put all those things together, yeah, it feels like they're maybe doomed.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's going to be too much longer before that regime just collapses under its own uh, non-viability, right?
It's gonna be super fascinating because my whole life, everything in the Middle East has been blamed on Iran,
Sure,
and probably some of us legit, and probably some of us not so
sure.
legit. But it will be if it does happen where Iran goes back to the Shah goes back, his son goes back or whatever, and it gets
Yeah,
back to a 1972 version of like that. It'll be interesting to see what that does to the Middle East over there. Because again, everything is supposedly always all their fault. Again, I'm sure that there's plenty of it that is, but
sure.
I would also be willing to bet that there's some things that aren't that they
Oh,
kind of
sure.
get
Well,
pinned on.
they're a handy whipping boy. If you want to, it's just like when
Yeah,
you've got a sibling that's always doing things
yeah,
wrong, and then you do something wrong. So, well, he did it. Because he's always doing
yeah.
things. So
Right,
sure,
right, right.
that happens, and so they'll have to find somebody else to blame. But it will be interesting to see if they were not there and the Abraham Accords expanded and there wasn't this constant Arabs versus Jews thing happening.
Yeah,
If that eventually goes away, then I mean, who knows? It could be amazing.
yeah. Um, and one of the people in the protests, they were chanting some stuff that I don't know the translations how accurate they are, but the versions of the translation I saw basically said, it's not it's not uh fighting Israel is not worth our own future or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Essentially, like that was like the gist of it. Again,
yeah.
I'm poorly paraphrasing it, and who knows if the translation was even correct. But uh, again, young people I can see going, okay, I get that you hated them for generations, but what's our path forward?
Exactly. I mean, well, how it takes a lot of energy to maintain hate,
And money.
and
It takes
yeah,
a lot of money on
energy.
that level.
It does. And so if you if you have visceral needs like I need to eat, I'd like to have clothes like the clothes I see that the Europeans have. I'd like to have cars like I see the Europeans have or the Americans have.
Yeah.
Is it really, is this whole great Satan thing really worth me not having a good life? I kind of don't think so.
I gotta imagine there's hundreds or thousands of people in Iran who, for whatever profession they have, travel to places like UAE
Sure.
or Qatar
Mm-hmm.
or Dubai or um, what's the other one over there that's more well off than others? There's a handful of these countries over
Yeah.
there that are more westernized, and
Sure.
they're arguably thriving much better than us or China. I mean,
Oh,
they're
sure.
crushing it.
Sure.
There's got to be hundreds or thousands of people who routinely go from who live in Iran but travel there for work or something like that.
Yeah.
Who see there has to be that I would think.
Sure.
Maybe not. Maybe what do I know?
Well, and
Well,
then the
it's going to
question is
be
tipping points. The question is always tipping points. So I think there's
yeah,
probably if you were to like take the entire population now of Iran, and it doesn't happen. This sadly, this is not how human beings work. But if you take the entire population and say, let's vote on the kind of government we want to have, and without threat of getting shot if you vote the wrong way, then they would probably be a westernized democracy or a westernized parliamentary republic in some within 5 minutes because most people would
yeah,
want that.
yeah, for sure. All right, Dave. Well, hey, happy New Year,
Happy New Year, Brian.
2026, man. Can you believe it? There's still no Jetson cars. I mean, I'm still waiting for that. That was the promise I was made when I was 7.
They're building them in China, Brian. They're building flying cars
Are
in
they?
China. They
I
are.
saw the flying motorcycle, but I have not seen the flying car
They're
yet. The
building
flying
flying
motorcycle
cars.
is pretty cool. It looked like that one in the Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah. No, I want one of those. I don't think anybody will let me have one, but I'd like one.
Well, they're only $140,000. I mean, come
Yeah,
on,
maybe you can buy me
go
one
get a
for Christmas
tightwad.
next year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Next year for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, as Dave said at the beginning, if there's anything we talked about that we got especially right or wrong, we'd love to hear your feedback. You can do that at unsilentpodcast.com, or Rumble has a great comment section. Again, we're trying to explain to future generations what it's like to live through this weird time in our country's history. And with that, happy New Year to all the people listening in modern times. And until next week, this is Dave and Brian signing off.
See you next year.
Do you want to be unsilent? Make your voice heard on our social media channels and share where you think we got it right or wrong. Go to unsilentpodcast.com for social links so you can join the discussion.